The good news is we're all in this together. And when we see we're together, we can work things out. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell, the amazing Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
In the flesh. We always start off every show the same way. That was part of it.
It's been rehearsed, guys.
And then I explain that every day I go to the internet and get the news relating to energy and climate change and post it at a blog called geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. And I put up 10 to 15 articles every day. And the articles can be found. We will try to keep track of what dates we're working on. We're starting on April 12th here, we're recording on Thursday, April 19th. So this is from Thursday, April 12th, and we do Thursday to Wednesday.
Well, some of these are worth following up on.
Yep.
I always read them, of course, before the show, so I know what's coming.
Yeah.
And I'll try to alert you to some that are particularly worthwhile.
Yep.
We've got a couple here this
We've
week.
got a couple here that are
definitely,
important.
there's one of them is almost a must-read, I think.
Absolutely.
If you own a house, it is a must-read. We'll get to that one.
Well, I suppose we should start off. If you want to read one of these articles, you can go to geoharvey.com, and there's a calendar there. You can click on the calendar, and that'll limit you to the 15 or so articles that will have gone up that day, and you can search for the news on that day, which is pretty easy. Anyway, we're starting with an article in Renews, and we have a picture here of an offshore wind farm.
We do.
We do. Let's put that up.
Yeah, it'd be better if I put it up.
There you go. Okay, what do you got for a title for this, Tom?
Shell reveals a $2 billion green vision.
Shell vowed to invest up to $2 billion every year up until 2020 with its new energies division, which is tasked with growing the energy giant's renewables business. Much of the cash will be spent on renewable power generation, Shell said. It is targeting markets in North America, Europe, and countries with fast-growing renewables sectors.
Well, I think Shell is showing that they're on top of things. I mean, they're still an oil giant, but they're looking at the future.
They're still being sued by people who are annoyed about climate change.
This is the way they look at it. Shell says clean power is an attractive investment opportunity.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, should we move on, or is there more there?
Yeah, we got another one here.
Okay, PV Magazine USA gave us this one.
This is a really long techie article. This is interesting if you've got the time, but it takes about 3 weeks to read it.
Although Tom did it in only about 3 hours, probably.
Solar and wind plus storage to increasingly replace gas plants.
For some years, it's been obvious that increasing deployment of solar and wind is cutting into the market share of coal and nuclear power plants in the U.S. and Europe. One industry pundit went so far as to call anyone who might build a combined cycle gas plant as, quote, crazy, end quote. And combined cycle gas plants are among the lowest cost gas plants.
Well, they are the lowest cost. Yeah.
They're the lowest cost that Lazard reports. There may be some technology that's, I don't know, but basically...
It's your basic gas plant.
Yeah,
you
what
burn
he's saying...
gas, you boil water, and you use the steam to run a turbine.
And he says if you do that, if you build a plant that does that, you're crazy.
Well, what's going on here is these plants are being increasingly retired.
Yeah.
Okay, because of economics. A negligible number of new plants of either technology, now there's combined cycle and the peaking plants,
Yes.
are being built in either region. And your ability to replace not only new plants, but also make transmission structure unnecessary, changes the economic threat that renewable energy represents.
Yes.
So these guys are up against the wall, really.
They really are. I started seeing situations where bids went out and solar power won the bid over natural gas probably about 5 years ago. And that was a peaking plant. So it's pretty easy to understand why solar won, because peaking power is very expensive. But here
that has changed. It's morphed.
Yeah. And now peaking plants haven't got less expensive, but solar plants have. And so has wind, and so has storage. That has to be remembered here. And you know, I should mention here that, and I don't remember whether we're going to get back to this or not, but there has been a kind of a constant flow of articles saying, you know, utility scale solar installations have gone in various parts of the world, and the prices for these things are going down. And
you get more of them because of that.
Yeah, in 2011, the Department of Energy started what was called the Sunshot Initiative, and the idea was they wanted to bring the price of the infrastructure needed to produce solar power at utility scale down to below $1 a watt. And I've been seeing the price at about 75 cents a watt. So we're way ahead of what they had wanted to do. But recently I saw one where solar plus storage. You know, the people who are saying the sun always doesn't always shine. We've got solar plus storage, and that's coming in at approximately $1 a watt now in some cases.
How do you beat that?
I don't know, but the cost of solar plus electricity from these things is beating the cost of electricity from natural gas. And natural gas is exposed to supply problems that solar is not. And those supply problems can mean the cost of the supply of natural gas goes
way up,
or it could mean that natural gas is simply not available. And on the other hand, you've got solar that you know how much sunshine it's going to cost.
Well, we've talked about this about Australia several times.
Yes.
I mean, people in Australia are taking it on themselves to put in solar just to save money.
Yeah.
And it's changing the whole nature of the Australian grid.
It is. And, you know, we have to be prepared for that. But this particular person is saying, you want to build a combined cycle natural gas plant? You're crazy. And he is, I've forgotten who it was, but he was high up in one of the organizations that is dealing with this kind of stuff.
Well, we got another picture coming up.
We do
here.
indeed, and this is one of the most important articles.
This is a very significant
I've ever
article.
seen. It's one of
very significant.
Yeah.
I think everyone should read this article. Really.
Well, you can go online and you can do a search for AMOC, which is the Atlantic Ocean Circulation Meridional. I've forgotten.
Try Gulfstream, you'll get it.
You do Gulfstream, yeah, you'll get it. And this particular article is from Science Alert, but there's a lot of these.
I'm going to bring back
good
the
one
picture,
from the Weather Channel and so forth.
Let you talk for a little while.
Okay, what's the title on this too?
We're on the verge of a major climate tipping point.
Yeah.
Sooner than anyone expected.
Right.
And we're going to talk about this again.
Put the picture up. The Atlantic Ocean circulation that carries warmth into the northern hemisphere's high latitudes is slowing down because of climate change, according to a peer-reviewed study published in the journal Nature. This suggests that one of the most feared consequences of climate change affecting the Gulf Stream is already coming to pass. Now, scientists have known that the Gulf Stream has been slowing for at least 10 years.
Oh yeah, it's been slowing
a little bit.
It's been slowing for a long time.
Yeah, but there's a couple of things here worth mentioning. One of which is the Europeans have suffered in the last few years a series of extremely cold winters
and hot summers.
Yeah, and this Gulf Stream is the thing that has always separated them from the pole. In order for any cold air to get from the Arctic to Europe, it had to go over the Gulf Stream, which warmed it up. So the result of that is Ireland is the Emerald Isle, because there's not a lot of snow in Ireland.
Well, Ireland and England are on the same latitude as Labrador.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they should be a lot colder than they are.
Now, here's the thing. If you look at latitudes, you'll find that, okay, Rome is about the same latitude as Chicago.
Yeah.
And
just about.
if the temperatures in Rome went to those of Chicago, people would be very uncomfortable. But try this out for size. Paris is on this which is an inland city. It's not going to be moderated by very close ocean water. Paris is at about the same latitude as about halfway between Bismarck, North Dakota, and Saskatoon. And you know what we're looking at here is the Gulf Stream has slowed down by 15%. That is 15%. That's a big slowdown, and that's a lot of heat that's not being delivered to Northern Europe. I think maybe
what the threat really is.
That may be what's behind these cold winters. And you know, maybe we're at a point where we've got to say, okay, time to kiss French wine goodbye, because that's not going to be here very much longer. And but the other thing to remember here is, you think about El Nino. If you ever see those El Nino maps, you see a kind of a narrow red streak going straight for Ecuador. And
I've never observed that.
Have
take
you?
your
Okay.
word for it.
It's a very narrow streak and it affects the fishing off South America. It affects the temperatures in Ecuador. It affects the temperatures and rainfall in the Amazon. It affects the temperatures and rainfall in Africa, in the Middle East, in Asia, and then it just keeps coming around the world, comes over to North America, where our temperatures and our rainfall are affected by El Nino and La Nina. Now, that is a fairly small event compared to what the serious slowdown of the Gulf Stream would be. And so we have had record temperatures where, for example, in Alaska last December, the temperatures for the whole month for the whole state were 17 degrees above average. For Greenland, Cape Morris Jesup, for a period of quite a long time, a couple of weeks, I think, the temperature was 50 degrees above normal.
Yeah, we talked about that on the show. That's
yeah,
crazy.
we did. And that's the northernmost tip of Greenland. Meantime, at the same time as both of those, we here in Vermont were suffering from really cold weather, while in Alaska the weather was too warm.
Yeah.
And the people in Europe were suffering from bitter cold weather, while Greenland was too warm. What's going on here? Well, it's called climate change.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are people who are paid to tell you that it doesn't happen, or that it's a Chinese plot, or whatever.
Well, the scary part of this article is two words: tipping point.
Tipping point.
Nobody knows where that is.
Well, I think
when
we've
it
already
happens,
passed it.
we'll know it.
I think we've already passed it.
Well,
we're past the tipping point. The reason I say that is because we have not experienced a whole lot of climate change. And we are still putting fossil fuels into combustion, which is releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere at record amounts. And people should understand this. Climate change is kind of like putting a pot of ice on a stove to melt. Mm-hmm. Okay. You put the ice on an electric burner and you turn it on, and in a few minutes you'll see that it's melting.
Then you can turn it off.
If you turn it off, it'll pretty much stop. It'll continue, but slowly. Mm-hmm. And if you were to put that ice into outdoors or into the freezer, it would just freeze right back up again. Climate change isn't like that. It's more like melting that pot of ice
on a wood stove.
On a wood stove, where you put stick after stick after stick into that stove to build a really hot fire, and the fire's really going before it really starts warming up.
Yeah.
And then you have the pot on there, and you see that it's starting to melt, and you say, okay, time to stop putting the sticks in. And what happens?
An hour later it stops melting.
And the scientists are saying they figure that if we stopped putting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere today, altogether, climate change would continue to go for at least 25 years, maybe 100 years, maybe longer. And the little
That's
bit,
something we're not thinking of at all.
and okay, so we've had it measurable in the last 35 or 40 years, where we've seen that it's advancing, but people are still denying it. And so what happens if we stop it right now? Well, the climate change is going to continue to happen. The Greenland ice and the Antarctic ice will continue to melt. The sea level will continue to rise because the amount of heat trapped by that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere will continue to increase. Mm-hmm. And what happens eventually is, the Gulf Stream is going to be changed, not 15%, but a lot more than that. And I think the 15% might explain the really bitter cold winters that we have had and colder winters yet to come.
Well, there's going to be some changes, folks.
Yeah. Well, one might hope that we would stop. One of the changes would be that we would stop trying to prevent the measures that would address this from being taken, because that's what's happening. In Vermont,
there's powerful lobbies out there that are doing exactly
we've got
that.
to a point where there is precisely one wind turbine scheduled, looking for a permit in Vermont. Mm-hmm. Just one turbine.
Well,
and
that's
of course,
a whole other story.
Well, there's people who wanted to put this on their 200 and some on acre farm.
Yeah.
And, what happens? People from all over Vermont are driving to that particular town to try to prevent it from going in.
That makes sense.
Well,
A farmer's got a field. It's a big field, and he wants to put a wind turbine in it.
Yeah.
And 50 people from around the state are running around saying, "You can't do that."
Yeah, it'll destroy the view. It'll kill birds. Kill birds? Are you kidding me? We've lost 3/4 of our birds already because of climate change and air pollution. And so what are we going to do? We're going to prevent a wind turbine from going in because the blade might kill a bird or two.
Yeah.
And
transmission lines kill birds.
Transmission lines kill a lot more birds than wind turbines.
There you go.
And if we don't have the ability to generate power in the state, then we're going to have to increase the transmission lines, because dealing with climate change means we have to stop using gasoline and diesel oil in cars. We have to stop using oil in homes.
Yeah, but there's money behind that.
Yeah, there's money behind it. Next quarter's bottom line is really important to a few people, and the whole world, including their grandchildren, are going to suffer as a result.
Well, it certainly seems that way.
Okay, I think we should move on. We could sit on this thing for the rest of the week.
Paper smashes rock. No, I got it wrong. Solar smashes wind in German tender.
Okay. I just changed the picture, but it's not this picture coming up. So just leave it there. This is from PV Magazine USA. For some years, it's been obvious that increasing deployment of solar and wind is cutting into the market share of coal and nuclear plants in the U.S. And I just read this. That is the picture that we're supposed to have. We're supposed to have something from
Solar smashes wind? I've got that picture down for the next one.
Science Alert. We just read Science Alert, Tom.
No, we're reading Clean Technical.
Clean Technica, German's Federal Network Energy reports. Oh, yes. Sorry about that. Germany's Federal Network Agency reports that in a 200 megawatt joint auction for solar and wind power, no bid for wind power was successful. No bid for wind power was successful. This is stunning. And solar projects won 32 contracts. The heads of the industry associations for both solar and wind said they considered the joint auction experiment unsuccessful because it was so one-sided. Yeah. Now, there's two things here, one of which is that the people who are pushing solar power are saying, we need the wind power. Mm-hmm. Our guys are winning everything. That's not good. We need the wind power. But the other thing is the price of solar power, that is to say, the electricity generated by solar power, the energy, not the power, has dropped to the point where it's a no-brainer to go with solar instead of wind. Mm-hmm. And
well, I think part of the problem was confusion.
Yeah.
They feel they should not have put them both on the same tender.
Yeah, they feel that. Yeah, absolutely. What they've got to do is come up with a balance between the two.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, anyway, we've got offshore wind power coming up.
Yeah, let's
that is
move
the
around
picture
to
that I
that
put
one
up.
here. Let me find the picture here, and there it is.
There it is.
By golly, I think he's
By
got
golly, yeah. This is from Renews.
a record start for UK wind.
Wind power helped renewable energy sources generate a record 25 terawatt hours of electricity in the UK in the first quarter of 2018, according to analysts NAPSIS. Wind generated 15.8 terawatt hours during the quarter.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. Renewables overall accounted for 29% of UK electricity generation in the period, behind natural gas with a 37.3% share. I've been kind of down on the government of the UK for years because they're not doing enough. And they're so far ahead of the United States, it's crazy.
Yeah. And they're not doing enough, again, because of politics.
Yes, that's correct.
Same thing here. There's
Yeah.
a quick takeaway here, and it makes sense. The performance of renewables highlights just how important this electricity source has become to Britain's power mix.
Absolutely.
Well, it's only going to get more important.
Yes. Now,
let's
we
move
have an
on
item
here.
from Platts.
Platts, whatever that is.
Platts is an organization that is devoted to prices of commodities and things of that nature. This
Okay.
So
So it's like an investment advisor.
it's
right?
like an investment advisor. Yep.
No nuclear units will be built in the U.S. due to high costs. This comes from Exelon.
This comes from Exelon, which owns a bunch of nuclear
I'll
units.
mention who that is when you finish
Yeah.
blabbing.
Due to their high due to their high cost relative to other generating options, no new nuclear power plants will be built in the U.S. William von Hona, let's say William von Hona, because he's probably American. Exelon's senior vice president and chief strategy officer told the U.S. Energy Association's annual meeting in Washington, D.C. He said, quote, "They are too expensive to construct relative to the world in which we now live," end quote. And of course,
That's happening in Britain too.
yeah, it's
Not
happening all over the
necessarily
world.
in Russia, not Russia.
India?
China and India.
Yeah, the
And they're
Chinese.
changing.
Yeah, the Chinese are way off on their nuclear construction from what they expected to be 5 years ago.
But to put this in its perspective, Exelon is the largest regulated utility in the United States.
Yeah.
Approximately 10 million customers. So that ain't, hey, it's also the largest operator of nuclear power plants.
In the United States.
So when they say something, they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, they've got.
And this also includes the so-called small modular reactors.
Yeah, small modular reactors are as expensive in terms of their output as the big reactors.
Well, yeah.
and
They're supposed to be the great savior, and they're not going to be. They're costing too much too.
they are too expensive relative to solar and wind already, and they aren't even ready to deploy yet. And I'm not sure why, because small reactors have been around for a long time.
Yeah, they're on aircraft carriers,
Well,
submarines.
1954 was when the Nautilus was launched with its.
Okay.
I think that's.
It's
what
got to
it
be
was.
pretty small to be in a submarine.
Yeah. Yeah. I
A lot
think
smaller
a
than
human
Yankee
being
was.
has got to be small to work in a submarine. There are people who are not allowed to work in submarines because they're too tall.
I never heard that one, but
Yeah, well. Anyway, we're up to Saturday,
yeah,
April
we
14th.
got a picture coming
We have
up
a
on this
picture
one.
here. This is a weird picture.
This is very weird.
Yeah.
For
Okay.
those who have sharp eyes, there's a man in that picture. See if you can find him.
Yeah, right. Hiding. Okay, this is from Reuters.
This is a fusion experiment at MIT. It's a pretty big fusion thing, too.
Yeah.
Italy's ENI defies skeptics, may upstake in a nuclear fusion project.
Italian energy group Eni is considering stepping up its nuclear fusion investment. Nuclear fusion is a technology considered so uncertain that Eni remains the only global oil company prepared to bet on it. This happens just as the falling price of wind and solar power, I think we've mentioned those before, the falling price of wind and solar. And a shift to electric vehicles raises doubts about long-term demand for oil. So
well, this Eni is the Italian
yes,
for the National Hydrocarbon Authority.
yes,
And it's big.
it's a big organization.
And the fusion, of course, aims to produce energy by fusing atoms at high temperatures.
Yeah, and people think of this as being an energy source that uses water for its energy, but
It doesn't.
It doesn't quite do that.
Yeah.
Technically, it uses typically, not always, but typically what it uses is two different things, both of which are chemically water. But one of them is deuterium oxide, which means
It's chemically water, but it's not water.
it's not water.
Heavy water.
It's heavy water, and that stuff costs several
it's heavy,
$1,000s a pint. And the other one is tritium oxide, which you need to have a nuclear
even
reactor.
heavier water.
Yeah, you need to have a nuclear reactor to make it, and it costs millions of dollars a pint. So you can't just take water out of a well and use it to make fusion in a fusion
I got a little
reactor.
backstory here.
Yeah.
Long time ago, I lived in Princeton, New Jersey.
Yes.
And one of my neighbors worked for a company that was in the fusion field.
Okay.
They were doing fusion research.
Yeah.
You know, and we were talking about it, and I said, when do you think it's going to be here? He says, it's got a long ways to go. So I said, well, why don't we start something like a Manhattan Project, which developed the atomic bomb? And, you know, get this done in a couple of years. And he says, oh, you could do that, throw all the money in the world in it, and it wouldn't speed it up. This thing has to be done in stages. You have to do this before you can do that. These things take time,
Yes.
and there's no way you can speed them up. Now, that was 50 years ago. You know, and we really haven't, we've made progress, but we're not there yet.
I think they've been looking for fusion power for 70 years, and it was always
That's probably right on the money.
the timeline for how long it would take to get to this has
It's always extended.
it's actually been decreasing. Now they're saying maybe it'll be 15 years or 10 years even, or 20 years, but you know, 50 years ago they were saying 40 years, and it just you know. So
Let's take a look at that. What we're looking at there, and it's a weird picture because I think they took it with a weird challenge.
fisheye lens.
That's called a tokamak.
Tokamak.
And the purpose of the tokamak is to constrain all of this energy, which is too hot to be constrained in anything we can build.
Yeah.
So they're using magnetic force to keep this in
Yeah.
a limited place so it can do its thing.
Yeah, and what happens if it's doing its thing and the magnetic force fails?
I think you're in big trouble.
Well, my guess is that it would act like a bomb.
I don't know if it'd be a bomb, but it would be nice to be around.
Well,
They do say it's not going to
I'm not going to
explode.
say a nuclear bomb, but I think that
Oh, okay.
if the magnets failed, you'd have something that would be a couple of million degrees in there, and it would have nothing constraining it. So, what does that do? It all of a sudden turns to vapor. And
I was just going to say everything vaporizes.
so it would
including the people.
it would make a very big mess. Well,
Now
anyway,
let's move along.
okay.
We're going to go to the Emerald Isle now.
The Emerald Isle, and this is from independent.ie, so it actually was
Yeah, I can
posted
read
at
you
the
up there.
Emerald Isle.
Ireland's power system is the first in the world, capable of delivering 65% of all electricity from, they call them variable sources,
Yeah.
renewable, including wind, period.
Yeah. Ireland's power system is the first in the world. You've already said this. Grid said it had achieved record levels of variable renewable energy after successful completion of a 5-month trial. It said the all-island power system was the first in the world to reach this level. Now, when they say all island, they're talking about the Republic of Ireland
Bingo.
plus Northern Ireland.
Exactly, which are two separate nations.
They're two separate nations, and but they're 65%. That's pretty impressive.
There's a big problem over there now because England, which is in union with Northern Ireland, hence the United
Yeah.
Kingdom, is leaving Europe and leaving the European market, and Ireland is in the European market,
Right.
and they don't know what they're going to do about the border yet. Because right now you could just drive across the border.
Yes, and that's kind of a messy problem. I mean, there's communities where people regularly drive back and forth, and all of a sudden, what are they going to do? Require a passport just so you can go to work?
I think they're going to keep the borders open. I think both sides want to keep the borders
They both
open.
want to keep the borders open, but in
think they'll
effect
figure out
that
how to
means
do
that
it.
if you want to go from France to the UK, you can do it by going through Ireland.
Yeah, well, it's true, but is it going to happen a lot?
It'll happen if people have a reason to do it without showing a passport,
Yeah.
such as if they're terrorists or whatever.
Something like
I mean,
that.
they've got to figure this out. It's going to be a problem. I think the cleanest way, as an Anglophile, I can tell you that the cleanest way to do it would be for the English to say, we don't need the Northern Ireland. We'll give them to Ireland.
Well, it's a very big industrial zone and generates a lot of profits.
Yes.
A lot of economy.
But there's a lot of people in Northern Ireland who want to be part of the Irish Republic. And my guess is
probably
it's
about 40% right now.
I was going to say I would bet it's more than half now.
It might be. It
Yeah.
might be. Well, the Catholics are more prolific than the Protestants.
Well, but there's another thing too, and that is freedom of religion is pretty carefully guaranteed in the Republic of Ireland.
Oh yeah.
So, you know,
It's really not about religion.
yeah,
It's about ethnicity, but not religion.
I think it's about the question of whether something is orange or whether something is green. I mean,
Well, a lot of the people in the northern part of Ireland are ethnic Irish.
they're ethnic Scottish.
Yeah, starting with this guy Cromwell, they put a lot of they brought a lot of
This
people
is
to
the
Northern
result of
Ireland.
people who wanted to cause trouble. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So, anyway, here we go to Wisconsin
we got a
Public
picture
Radio
here
News.
coming
We
up.
have a
Let's
picture of the Oak Creek coal burning power plant.
This is an interesting aspect of it. I haven't
Yeah.
thought of this one yet. Coal dust controversy spreads at large southeast Wisconsin power plant.
Wisconsin's largest coal-fired power plant, We Energy's Oak Creek generating facility on Lake Michigan, on the shoreline south of Milwaukee. That's where my son lives, by the way. Burns about 12,000 tons of coal every day.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's
As
a
it
lot,
arrives by the train load, it sits in large piles. Black coal dust blows into nearby neighborhoods, and this is a concern for residents. This is
This is not about emissions. This is about the dust off the coal.
Yeah, Wisconsin Public Radio News. This is a serious problem. It's not just making a mess.
No, people are getting sick.
People are getting sick, and it's not good for you. I mean, these are people who, well, I mean, if you go into a coal mine, if you're smart, you wear a respirator to protect your lungs. But these people have got to live with this stuff 24 hours a day. Okay, we are up to Sunday, April 15th, and we've got an item from the Gulf Times.
And this is called China's Bold Energy Vision.
The boldest plan
It's a good article.
It is. The boldest plan to achieve the targets set by the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement comes from China. China's global energy interconnection offers a vision of how to achieve this energy transformation that is breathtaking. It moves electricity from where renewable resources are abundant to where it is needed. And this is something that they want to do not only in China, but in the whole world. They want,
Basically, yes. They're looking about building a worldwide grid.
They want a worldwide
And they
power grid.
have the knowledge and technology to do it.
Yeah, and we've said this a bunch of times. There's the technology of grid transmission has got to the point where you can cost effectively deliver electricity generated anywhere on Earth to any other place on
This
Earth
is
if you
correct.
just have the proper power line running between the two.
And that's high voltage DC.
High voltage DC, yeah.
And it's probably cooled high voltage DC.
Cooled high voltage
And the
DC.
Chinese have been developing that exact technology.
Yeah, there was a lawsuit that was developed because an organization in Ayer, Massachusetts. Do you know Ayer?
Yeah.
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 Well, they're not very far from us. And,
No, they're not.
And an organization in Ayer developed cryogenic technology for power transmission, which meant that
Oh, I
the
didn't
power
know that.
lines, yeah,
Yeah.
the power lines are
cooled.
super cooled,
Yeah.
so they are basically without resistance. And so
Bingo.
the loss of electrical power is entirely made up, hopefully, of what you need to do to
cool it.
cool the power lines.
That's the cost.
That's the cost. So, should we move on? Or should we talk about China powering
I think
the
we've
UK?
already covered it. I mean,
Okay.
I
mean,
you said in about 10 words what I got here in 2 paragraphs. So. let's
Okay.
move on, because
All right, we are up to desmog. That little girl in the front there
Yeah,
on the
let's get
right
that
side
picture
looks
up
like, I hear what you're saying and I know what you've got on your mind.
we've talked about this incident here.
Yeah.
It's not an incident, it's an event, I guess.
Yes.
What's happening.
Yes,
A
it's been
trial
going on for a
date
while.
is set for a groundbreaking kids climate lawsuit.
A trial date of October 29th has been set for a landmark lawsuit brought by a group of young Americans. Juliana versus the United States was filed in 2015 on behalf of 21 young plaintiffs
And there they
who
are.
allege their constitutional and public trust rights are being violated by the government's creation of a national energy system that causes climate change. If an expert comes to you and says you're doing something that is going to kill people, it's incumbent on you to act on that. Now, the experts have gone to the U.S. government and said the way we're operating our electric system is killing people, and it's not necessary to do that. And the government is acting like they don't even hear it. And that means, in my book, that they're guilty of homicide. The federal government of the
Well,
United
I
States.
think that's part of their argument.
Yes.
The other part of their argument is about the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah, which is not going to be much more difficult if the Gulf Stream stops.
I think.
Okay.
Oh boy, such a wonderful future we have
Yeah.
here.
All right. We have an item coming up from KIRO Seattle, which I assume is a radio station.
I think it's a radio station. Antarctica's ice retreating 5 times faster than normal. That's not a good thing.
No. According to a study published this month in the journal Nature Geoscience, Antarctica's frozen underbelly is melting and receding at a rate about 5 times faster than normal. In the centuries following an ice age, glacier grounding lines should retreat at about 82 feet per year, but this ice is retreating at speeds of up to 600 feet per year. Now, this is something that's only been coming out in the last couple of years. They've been discovering that the ice on the ice shelves in Antarctica is melting from underneath.
That's not
And
good.
no, and what it does is it breaks away and then it floats off, and the pundits have been saying, but it doesn't really matter because it's been sitting on top of the water's supporting it, so that it's not going to cause
It's like ice cubes in a drink.
Yeah, it's not going to cause the sea level to rise. The problem with that is it is causing
It's
the sea level.
exposing the other ice.
It's exposing
And that's
the other
the
ice.
problem.
That's the
That's the
problem.
problem.
And that means these glaciers that were bottled up by these big ice shelves all of a sudden have had the cork come out of the bottle.
Well, between 2010 and 2016, the ice has melted approximately 600 square miles.
Yeah.
That's a goodly amount.
Yeah. It's bigger than my backyard.
If all of Antarctica's ice were to melt, this would raise sea levels by 200 feet.
Might be hard to walk down Wall Street when that happens. Okay, we're up to Monday, April 16th. You can go to
Hey, we got a
geoharvey.com
nice
and
picture here.
click on the calendar. You want a picture?
Yeah,
Here's
why
a
not?
picture.
We got a picture
I
here.
like this picture. I like the waves in it.
Well, what's particularly nice about it, it's local.
Yeah.
This is Martha's Vineyard.
This is the Deep Energy Wind Block Island site. Okay.
Kind of rough weather there the day they took that
Yeah,
picture.
that's the reason I put it in. Workboat has come up with this for us.
New Massachusetts offshore wind energy auction and a New Jersey project get a boost. Well, we talked about this wind energy auction last week.
Yes.
This is the same location.
Yeah.
South of Martha's
More
Vineyard.
or less the same location.
Oh, it is the same. It's
Identical?
It's on the same map. yeah.
Okay. 2 more Massachusetts offshore wind energy leases are moving toward auction by the Federal Bureau of Ocean Energy Management as southern New England and mid-Atlantic states are hastening their own planning for wind power. The 2 lease tracts totaling 390,000 acres are located south of Martha's Vineyard.
Well, the important part here we haven't even mentioned yet is the similar array off of Atlantic City.
Yes.
This is the first attempt to go down there.
Yes.
And this looks like this is something that Trump is pushing.
Trump is pushing it.
Yeah.
This is interesting, isn't it?
Because he used to hate wind.
Still does, I think. I think he still does.
Well, New Jersey state legislature passed a law, so there's nothing he could do about it.
Yeah.
And maybe he's just getting on the bandwagon.
I don't know. I don't think he's really doing anything about it. I think he's playing golf and somebody else is the person who's doing things about it. Anyway.
Well, we've talked about these outfits, Deepwater Wind,
Yep.
U.S. Wind,
Yep.
and the Denmark-based Ørsted, which used to be called, what was it? Sounded like a Chinese.
Dong.
Dong, yeah, sounded Chinese.
D-O-N-G.
Are
Danish
making
Oil and
plans for
National
much
Gas.
bigger arrays on federal leases off New Jersey.
Yep.
And there's a lot of potential off New
A
Jersey.
lot of potential, huge potential. Massachusetts, Maine, you could produce more wind power in those 2 states than we use in energy
Maine
of all
just
sources.
came up and said, boy, we got a lot of wind potential
Yeah.
here.
Okay, our next item is from Clean Technica.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yes, it is.
It's the Gulf Stream, stupid. Climate scientists warn tipping point is near.
Take away
There's a good map here.
Yeah.
Good, very good map.
Take away
here.
the heat of the Gulf Stream, and Europe becomes up to 10 degrees Celsius warmer in the winter, cooler in the winter. Parts of Africa become more arid. The sea level rise in the eastern seaboard in the United States increases. The flow of the Gulf Stream is down 15% since 1950. Now, 10 degrees Celsius,
18F.
colder.
18F. 18 degrees
18 degrees Fahrenheit. So all of a sudden, Paris is 18 degrees Fahrenheit on a cold winter day. 18 degrees Fahrenheit colder than it used to be. Why? Because of global warming.
Duh. That's why they say it's the Gulf Stream, stupid.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, this is something that Senator Inhofe should have thought about before he threw the snowball in the Senate.
By the way, there's an interesting thing in the article.
Yeah.
The amount of water we're talking about in the Gulf Stream is 3 times more than all the freshwater rivers on Earth combined.
Yeah.
It's a lot of water.
There's a lot of water in the Gulf Stream. Yes, that's right. Okay. Now we're up to business green.
Yeah, we got another picture.
We have a picture here.
Yeah.
Of
A couple of
unconvinced
Vermonters here.
cows.
Less meat and more green power. Scientists cook up 1.5 degrees trajectory with minimum reliance on negative emissions.
After
You
all
have
of
to
the
explain what that means.
After all of the bad news that we've had, here's a little moment of good news. Scientists at Utrecht University have modeled a way to get to hit tough global climate targets without resorting to excessive use of negative emissions technology. They found that by using more renewable energy and reducing agricultural emissions, the world could hit a 1.5 degree goal, this is 1.5 Celsius, with less use of negative emissions technology. Now, I want to point out...
They're meaning eat less meat.
What they want to do is eat less meat.
Eat less meat.
Less meat.
Which is good for your health, too.
Raise fewer cattle.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
bottom line.
The cows are unconvinced. They want to have lots of cattle. And but the thing is, another thing is, what scientists have come to understand is that if we stop carbon emissions by switching to renewable energy, that won't be enough. We have to go beyond that.
We gotta go beyond-
and so
right.
what this article is saying, we don't have to do geoengineering to go beyond that. We don't have to imitate volcanoes or something like that to reverse the effects of climate change. What we can do is just say, okay, we're going to have a change in lifestyle. And I will say one thing that the UN has said is that crickets taste very nice.
What is?
Crickets.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've never tried a cricket.
I've never tried them, but anyway, we're up to Tuesday, April 17th. I'm not saying that we eat crickets instead of beef. I think what we have to do is just eat less beef. Anyway,
We got another picture coming
we have a
up here.
picture, that's right. And if you notice in this picture, there is on the left there in the sky an airplane that looks like it's landing.
It is.
Okay.
Solar farm to make Chattanooga Metropolitan Airport totally energy self-sufficient.
This is from the Chattanooga Times Free Press. My brother went to school down there. Chattanooga Metropolitan Airport may become the nation's first airport to get 100% of its energy from solar power. Officials have agreed to move ahead with initial work on the third phase of its solar farm. The newest phase would help create enough electricity to pay the airport's power bill, its chief executive said. By the way, I did go down to visit him when he was down near Chattanooga once, and we got hit with 8 inches of snow while I was down there. And Chattanooga,
Never gets snow.
they have no idea what to do with 8 inches of snow.
They don't have any idea what to do with a half-inch of snow.
That's right. Okay. They're going to have an airport that's 100% powered by solar power and batteries.
They got a pretty big field showing there.
Yep.
Well, they got plenty of room in an airport.
Yes, they do.
Interesting takeaway here, a side effect. In putting in this third phase, they had to lower the elevation of land by 9 feet because of the federal runway requirements.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Okay.
It cost them more money to do it.
Our next item is from CNN.
Oh, okay.
This was an interesting...
This is a very interesting and significant article.
Yeah.
Mud in this small Japanese island could change the global economy, and it could.
Yeah, a
It really
small
could.
island in the Pacific Ocean is the site of a discovery that could change Japan's economic future, and actually, in some respects, the world economy. The island has large enough supplies of several rare earth minerals to supply current world demand for hundreds of years. Rare earth elements are used for numerous specialty products. Nearly all supplies have been coming from China. I used to work with rare earth elements in a chemical.
Well, they're not as rare as the
They're
name
not
would
that rare.
suggest,
But
but
you-
they're only in certain locations.
Yeah, and
You're not
there's
going to find it anywhere.
there's another thing too, and that is chemically separating these things. They're so nearly identical that chemically separating them is a difficult problem.
I can believe
And,
that.
you know,
Yes,
so-
I can believe that.
Yeah, they're all over the place, but not in forms that are worth trying to mine.
In case you remember your high school chemistry, some of these rare earth, they all have funny names.
Gadolinium,
Yttrium,
yttrium,
europium,
ytterbium.
terbium,
Yeah,
ytterbium.
yeah.
Well, yeah, you see these in high school chemistry.
Yeah.
You know, well, nobody does anything with these things.
I have handled tons of gadolinium.
Is that what happened to you?
Yeah. Okay. Let's
Well,
keep
this little
going.
island is 800 miles off the coast of Japan. It's
Yeah.
in the middle of absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
But there's an estimated 16 million tons of these rare earth minerals.
Amazing.
It will change the global economy, as this
Yep.
thing said.
Okay, our next item comes from Green Biz.
We got another picture.
Another
coming up.
picture.
I'm getting swamped here.
You're getting swamped. Yep.
Why Berkshire Hathaway's utility is aiming for 100% renewable energy. They own a utility.
Yeah. Falling prices for wind and solar power are helping the Iowa utility owned by Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway gain on its goal of generating 100% of its electricity from renewable resources, a company officer said. But a major force driving Mid-American Energy's renewable energy plans is its customers who want more clean energy. Now, these customers are in Iowa.
Well, it's also one of the windiest places in the United States.
And they know that in
They're
Iowa.
well aware of that.
And they know that the wind is free, and they know that they're paying for oil and gas, and they know all of these things, and the fact that they happen to be Republicans doesn't mean that they're not in favor of wind power. And they live with wind power. They know all about it.
They know about wind.
They know about wind.
It's an interesting thing, though. I mean,
30
the way it's turning around.
Yeah, more than 30% of Iowa's electricity comes from wind power. I think it's approaching 40%.
I would not at all be surprised
Yeah.
because they do have plenty of wind.
Yeah. Okay, we are up to Wednesday,
The last day we got 10 minutes left.
April 18th.
So we can talk a lot.
We can
This
talk.
is local. This is a good one.
Yes.
This is a must-read for some Vermonters who own their own homes.
Yes.
I'm not kidding about it.
Yes.
Green Mountain Power's distributed energy business isn't scaling fast enough.
This is from Green Tech Media. Green Mountain Power has done a lot to put distributed energy resources into the hands of its customers, but less than 3% of the utility's customer base is currently using one or more of these offerings, a report from Rocky Mountain Institute said. That adoption rate will have to grow tenfold or more to meet the state green energy goals.
This is kind of strange because every one of these options that Green Mountain Power is offering will save you money.
Every one of them will save you money.
I mean, you may pay a little bit more for your electricity,
Yep.
but you're going to pay less for your gas or whatever
Yeah,
it is you're using.
absolutely.
To heat your house.
Absolutely.
Every one of these things
Every
is a
one
net
of them.
energy saving
To the customer.
to the customer.
And
they're sitting there on their hands.
Green Mountain Power wants you to do this.
Yeah.
So you.
But the biggest, how would you say it? The biggest rate of these things being used is only one of the offerings, and that's 15% of the customers.
Yep.
The rest of them is 2-3% of the customers have taken advantage of these things. It doesn't
Okay,
make sense.
our last story is going to talk about this.
Is it?
Absolutely, it is.
Well, this is why I said it's a must-read for some. If you
Yep.
own your own home, you're buying power from Green Mountain Power, read this article.
Yeah, and if you.
And then go up and tell them you want some.
Yeah, and if you don't live in Vermont, read the article anyway, and tell the people at your utility that you want them to offer you the same kinds of things that Green Mountain Power offers its customers, because these things will save substantial amounts of money.
Well, these things are. This isn't rocket science. It's a
But-
heat pump
but-
instead of an old-fashioned
Yeah,
oil
but
burner.
you know what? When if I put a battery in my house, it saves me money, but it would also save my next door neighbor money, even though the next door neighbor doesn't have a battery,
Yeah.
because it will shave the peak demand down. And when that peak demand goes down, the electric prices go down for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that people should be pursuing, I think. Okay,
So we got another picture.
we have
coming
that
up here.
picture
Boy,
come
I'm
up.
getting flooded
Look
with
at
pictures
that.
here.
Yeah, I know. There's just pictures and pictures. This
I-
is from
I got to
ABC
get a different
Online.
picture coming up.
Huh?
You got to change the picture for me.
I have to change the picture?
Yeah, we got to.
There you go.
There we go.
This is from ABC Online, and ABC is not American Broadcasting Company. It is Australian
yeah.
Broadcasting Company.
Not to be confused.
Not to be confused.
Renewable energy capacity set to exceed target federal government said was impossible.
This is so funny. Tony Abbott said, "We can't meet that goal. It's not possible. Let's set ourselves a smaller goal and try to sell as much coal as we possibly can." So that's what they did. In its renewable energy quarterly renewable energy index, Green Energy Markets said the amount of renewable energy generated in Australia is set to exceed the original renewable energy target of 21,000 gigawatt hours in 2020. That target was scrapped in 2015 by the federal government because it took the position that the goal was impossible to achieve. So, you know, these guys are saying, we can't do that, so we're not even going to try. And the government said, okay, we're not going to try, and it's happening anyway.
Yeah.
And it's, listen, in case you want to say this is the free market at work, well, it is to an extent. But it also isn't to an extent, because a lot of this was the result of states like Victoria and so forth, you know, just
Well,
saying
the coal
we've got to
industry
move on this.
is strong in Australia.
Yeah. And another thing about the free market becomes obvious when you look at this last article. Do you have more on that one, Tom?
Just reading the last sentence here. We'll pass it on. We'll go to the next one.
Our last article
This
is from
is an important article
etenergyworld.com.
Six-fold rise in renewables is a must to
Right.
limit temperature rise. Six-fold rise and it's starting to happen just on the basis of economy.
Yes, but it's not happening fast enough. That's the problem. Increasing the pace of global renewable energy adoption by at least a factor of 6 we have to put in solar and wind more than 6 times as fast as we are, is critical for meeting the energy-related emissions reductions goals of the Paris Climate Agreement. However, it can still limit global temperature rise to 2 degrees Celsius, according to the International Renewable Energy Agency's long-term renewable energy outlook. Now, here's the problem. We are already in serious trouble, apparently. Last year we had...
How can we be? It's a myth.
Yeah. Last year we had 3 Category 4 hurricanes. It was the first year that we had more than as many as 3 hurricanes of Category 3 or stronger.
So what you're saying is the 100-year storm is coming 3 times a year.
Yeah, and there were people in Texas who were completely flooded out, even though they weren't in flood zones.
They weren't in the flood zones. Yeah, Houston really took a bath.
Now,
literally.
Miami is getting flooded every other week.
Yep.
Because the high tide happens to coincide with a new or full moon, and that is called sunny day flooding. It's happening all over the east coast of the United States. The sea level is going up. And by the way, in case anybody wants to say, well, maybe it's the coast going down, no. We've got the technology to measure the height of the sea relative to the center of the Earth from our satellites. Mm-hmm. And so we know it's the sea level rising. It is not, in some cases the coast is going down, but we know that too. And we know that all of the counties, the parishes in Louisiana on the Gulf Coast are in serious trouble because of ocean level rise, and they've already told the people in those various places they're going to have to move.
Yeah.
And denying that this is happening, Tom, I want to tell you what this reminds me of, okay? There's a story of a woman who had a pot of oil on a stove to make French fries. And she had it on, it was heating up, she was getting ready to put the fries in, she got distracted. And the next thing you know, the pot's on fire. Now, in case anybody has this happen, the thing that you do, easy to put the fire out, you put a lid on the pot. And if you want to be safe, put a lid on the counter by the pot so that if it catches fire, you can put a lid on the pot fast. But what does she do? She picks the thing up, burning, and carries it to the sink and puts it in with the idea that she's going to put water in it. Uh-oh. Her daughter saw this happen and said, "Don't do that." You don't do that because when the water hits the oil, it boils and it splatters burning oil all over the place, including on you. So the daughter calls the fire department. She still hasn't thought to, just put the lid on the pot. Well, it's understandable. When things get tough, people...
You don't always think.
You don't always think. The fire department, the truck has just returned to the firehouse from a false alarm. They had an alarm that got these guys out into a muddy field someplace. It turned out that it was a false alarm. So they took the truck back. No sooner do they drive into the place, they're still on the truck. The dispatcher says, you got to go to XYZ house because there's a fire in the kitchen. So they arrive 2 minutes later. I mean, like almost within 2 minutes of the time the fire starts, the guys are coming through the door. So the woman says, "Don't you come in here until you've washed your boots off."
That's for real?
No, it's not for real, but it's a real story. The problem that you've got, I knew somebody where that came close to happening. Let me put it that way. It didn't happen exactly that way. Anyway, what we've got is a situation where we've got to act. And people are saying, don't put up wind turbines because they kill birds, they destroy the view, and they are bad for property values. Well, I got news for you.
They're not.
They're not bad for the property values. I have been looking for 6 years at this news, and I've been looking specifically for something that says people get sick for wind turbines. I haven't found it yet. I've found a myth. I've found a thing saying 2 guys spent a weekend in a cottage and got nauseous, but I haven't, That they kill a lot of birds? Yeah, they kill birds. They don't kill anywhere near as many birds as fossil fuels do. And certainly nothing compared to what's happening with climate change. Property values go down. Okay?
Not true.
It's just not true. Anyway, time to go. Have a perfectly lovely week anyway. See you next time.